Hey everyone, Aaron here, Kite Paddle Surf, and today we are going to be taking a look at Torq Dawn Longboard. This has been quite the journey I've had with this board, a lot of surf sessions on it, so I'm really excited to kind of share my thoughts with this board and kind of give you guys some direction on buying performance longboards. It's definitely a lot different type of a board than, say, comparing this to, say, like the Catch Surf logs, planks, and those type of boards. So I kind of want to show you some of those different, or kind of talk about what I felt different in this board surfing one of those boards. And just a disclaimer right away, I'm not like one of the best or even a really good longboard surfer, so don't feel like I have like this huge knowledge base on longboarding. Recently, the last half a year to almost a year now, I've really been focusing on like my fishes and shorter boards under 6 feet, but had quite a bit of time on this, and I really want to share my thoughts with you guys on this board and just performance longboards in general. Okay, so the Dawn, this is the 9.6, coming in around 71 liters. So it's a pretty good size board, especially for someone my size. I'm 150 pounds, 5'8". So obviously this board is probably geared more towards closer to the 200-pound range. But anyways, this is the board that I got. I really wanted to have it for surfing small wave days. Okay, so let's talk about construction. Torq construction, this is the TEC, which is the Torq epoxy composite. So it's a little bit more of a high-end construction than their TET construction. So with the composite, it's a lighter weight board, and it's pretty much just as durable as the TET construction. So they use 3 layers of glass on the top, 2 layers of glass on the bottom, EPS foam. The foam is not watertight like you have, say, in like my Thunderbolt Firewire board right here, the Wrangler. That would be a closed cell foam. So you do need to repair this board shortly after. If you have a damage, let it dry out first, and then you can repair it. So they put this carbon cloth down the center of the board, top and bottom, and what that's going to do is really give this board a real proper flex pattern. Now, like I said earlier, I'm not the greatest longboarder, so I couldn't tell you right away that surfing this over, say, like another longboard, I noticed a great deal of more flex or better feedback. It's just a big board, and with my weight, that's kind of hard to feel in the board. So, but that's what this is going through the board. And then this board is set up as a single fin box with the 2 side bites. And towards the end of surfing with this board, I did add the side bites, and I felt like stepping back on the tail and initiating a turn, I felt a little bit more control out of the tail than just having a single fin. So you can kind of pick and choose what you like there. Now, as far as the contours go on this, it's pretty much mostly of a double all the way through here. Pretty flat up here in the front, but you can feel that double right through the middle of the board, and then right as it gets out to the tail, you can kind of feel that double into a V there. So that's going to kind of help this board maneuver better than just being a single concave board all the way through. So when you do step on the tail and you want to make that turn, you can feel like you can get on to the other rail a little bit easier. As far as the rocker profile goes, this board is incredibly flat rocker, and I mean like really flat. So like when I'm laying down this board and I'm paddling out towards the lineup, even if I'm weight distributed, my weight distribution is just about right on this board. The tip, the nose of the board just sits right above the surface, so it's really flat. So that's going to obviously help you paddle really fast into waves, or paddle fast into waves, and also paddle out to cover different parts of areas that you're surfing. So most of the surfing I do is on beach breaks, and so I'll find myself time to time surfing kind of a zone, and then as the tide changes, I may paddle over to a different zone, different beach break, and getting from point A to point B is going to be a lot more efficient on a longboard versus a 5'6", 5'8" fish. So there's kind of some of the build characteristics of the board, some of the outlines. As far as the rails, They're not too boxy. They're pretty thin for the most part, and they're pretty round, pretty much 50-50 all the way from here. I can tell you right about there on the board is where the rails start to harden up. And right all the way back here to where the fin is, it's a pretty crisp rail. So that's why this board is a performance longboard, because not only can you nose ride this board, but if you step on the tail, it's got that nice sharp edge rails, so it's going to engage and allow you to turn this board. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of tell you my experiences on this board. So surfing mostly shore, beach breaks, I tend to find myself more in not necessarily bigger waves, but steeper, smaller 1 to 3 foot waves. So a wave that kind of comes up, but then at the last minute really kind of pitches up a little bit. And a board like this is very challenging to paddle into those waves if you have that little bit of a steeper wave because of that flat rocker. And I'm going to show you guys a couple clips, 2 clips that I have of where you can see where I'm just paddling into the wave and the nose of the board just catches the front part of the wave. And as soon as that nose buries, with my skill level, beginner, intermediate, I don't know what it is exactly, but every time that nose goes in, I just totally lose catching the wave and I kind of bail on the board. So that's the tricky part I found with this board. So that's where I wanted to compare it to, say, like a thicker board, like an Odyssey log, is that there's so much foam in front of that board that when you go into a steeper wave, that thick nose does not want to penetrate into the water surface. It wants to stay on top of the surface. So it may not be a performance longboard, but it's going to keep you in steeper waves, that nose out of the water. Now let's compare this board to, say, my 8.6 longboard by Torq over here that you saw a review that I've done of this a couple years ago. I'll leave in the link in the description below for this board. But that board, comparison to this board, is not quite as bladed out, pretty close, but it has a little bit more flip in the nose. So that added rocker helps keep that board out of the water. But this is going to paddle a little bit more efficiently because it's flatter. Okay, now, so that's kind of what I wanted to tell you about where I found myself getting in trouble with takeoffs. Now, let's talk about paddling out to the lineup. So when I paddle this board out, typically I'm on smaller days, and when I paddle out through waves, I use the technique of holding the side of the board, the rails, and then kind of going up onto my toes and then pushing the board through the wave. Now, this board did amazing paddling out through waves. Because of that bladed nose, it'll just pierce right through the wave as you're paddling out, which is very effective for getting out to the lineup. Where you get a board with a bit more volume, a bit more chunk and rocker, it won't do that, and it wants to just go up and then kind of slap you down on the other side of the wave. Something to think about, something to note on kind of the rocker profile and the noses of the boards. Now, another thing I found when I paddle into waves with this board is that I tended to put a little bit more angle on the board because it is 9'6". The longboard was an 8.6, and I've done a lot of 8.0s, but because of its length, if I were to point it pretty much, almost towards shore, most of the time I'd always put that nose in even on the smallest of waves. So I always kind of try to put a little bit more angle on the board, and that definitely helped keeping the nose out of purling in the wave. And then as far as the glide, it's an amazing gliding board. Once you're up and you're on the wave, the board just glides forever, and it just wants to keep going and going and going. So that whole sensation of surfing longboards is just such a great feeling on a board like this because it just glides forever. Now, as far as maneuvering this board, my skill level is definitely a little bit challenging because of that length, but I found once I did get my back foot in the correct position all the way back, then I could find myself starting to maneuver the board a little bit better, especially with those side bite fins. So those are some of the things that I noticed while riding with this board, is that it is a great board. I think it's an awesome board, but I think it's a little bit more of a specific board for someone who really truly wants to longboard and they're paddling in waves that are maybe a little bit fatter, that don't have that steep pitching beach break. There's definitely some breaks, you know, on the Washington coast or you know, in the Straits that are just a little bit flatter, and you know, they'll kind of pitch up and then the top part crumbles. You know, this is a great board for that. If the wave is just coming and then all of a sudden it just goes like this, even if it's small, such a challenge to be on a board like this. Very challenging to ride this board. So definitely is a special type of board. I had originally gotten this board for my wife Victoria, who was definitely a beginner surfer, thinking that 9'6", she should catch every wave possible, but it turned out to be a very challenging board for her to ride, and almost to the fact that it was not a great beginner board. So if you're a beginner surfer and you're like, I'm gonna buy a longboard, definitely get a board that is not only long, like this, 8 to 9 foot, but also thick in the nose and just in general to keep the board on top of the water, keep it from purling, and to also allow you to be able to paddle out to the wave lineup efficiently and also to catch waves. So it's probably more tailored toward, I'd say, the intermediate to advanced surfer that wants a longboard that's a performance-based longboard, because it's an amazing board for that. The construction is incredible. There's like, I've had this board for quite a while. There's no heel dents, there's no stress fractures, there's just nothing. And there's a little bit of a, you know, got hit on the rail here, but just showed a little bit of a surface scratch there. So the durability is incredible, and it's relatively really lightweight. I mean, this board is almost getting close to 10 feet, and it doesn't feel that heavy at all, the board. So in general, that's kind of the go-through, that's kind of the run-through of the board, talking about the Torq Dawn. Comes in a couple different sizes, 8'6", 9, and a 9'6" is what it comes in. It also comes in the XL, which is just a little bit thicker on the dims, and then a little bit wider in the width of the board. So you can get that as well too, if you want a little bit even more volume in your board. So a couple different sizes to choose from. But yeah, it's an awesome board. Definitely more of a specialized longboard, I would say, for the certain type of rider, but in general, great boards. We really enjoy Torq boards here at Kite Paddle Surf. A lot of customers have bought Torq boards, come back to us and say they're totally stoked on them. So it's a great board. It's a good board to have in your quiver if that's the type of riding you want to do, is longboarding, performance riding. Okay, so hope that answers a few questions. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thanks again, guys. Subscribe to the channel, and we're going to try and keep getting more videos out for you guys. Thanks for watching. See you guys on the next one.